Hello and welcome back to the NCMU Podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up and equipping the next generation of nerd culture missionaries. My name is Mark, the pastor of Lux Digital Church, and you are in, some point in season 2 of NCMU, and so we're so glad to have you here. And with me today, I am joined by my good friend, XtianNinja. XtianNinja, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here with us today.
And I'm super glad. What an honor to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, XtianNinja, you and I got to hang out a little bit earlier this year at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit in Texas, which was awesome.
We did. You were busy. I'll give you that. You had some stuff to do. I was just wandering around aimlessly, and I get to bump into you now and again.
Yeah, it wasn't planned that way. But well, listen, Ninja,
you were doing everything, man. I was watching because you did everything from being on stage with a microphone to you were boxing stuff, and then you went to the sound booth and you were fixing things over there. You were running around talking to folks and organizing. You were going mad. It was awesome.
Well, listen, you've been in ministry, so you know what it's like to plan an event and sign yourself up for responsibilities, and then not quite realize how many of them are happening simultaneously. You've done
it all looks good on paper. Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I could be the MC and this and that, and then when it comes to execution, you're like, what did I do? Why? Oh my gosh. Well, listen, one of the things we love to do on the show, Ninja, right when we get started, is we love to get to know you and get to know our guests, and so we'd love to just hear a little bit of your story, what brought you to where you are today, and what brought you to what you're doing right now. So why don't you give us the XtianNinja overview, what brought you to the brand that you have, and what you're doing on Twitch.
Oh, good golly. What a big question. I guess we'll start generally. I'm married for almost 27 years now, 4 kids, nice. Been a lifelong nerd for a long time. When I was a nerd before nerds were cool. Back before Big Bang Theory was trying to push the fact that nerds are somewhat okay. I was back in the day. I felt like the only Christian in my school. I was the only one who knew how to run the computer. Whenever things were broken, they would call me out of math class to go fix the library computer. I was that level of nerd.
You were the nerd that forged the path forward.
I
for
was
nerds like
yes,
me, right? I walk in your shadow in many ways.
Absolutely, yes. The reason that people look out and go, man, we could probably use a nerd here, is because of all the ones that got picked on and then ended up, ruling the world anyway. You got to be nice to your nerds, man, because they're the ones that are going to rule the world.
Well, they said that, man. Nerds have said that for years, and then, but it's real now. It's true. It's for real now. It happened.
Yep. So I've been a streamer now for almost 3 years. Anniversary in March. I'm actually going to be celebrating my 600th stream come April. So it's been doing this for quite some time. I have been XtianNinja for longer than that, though. I had a podcast for 7 years before that, most sermon stuff and then news stuff, and kind of trying to be all things to whatever I could do with that podcast. And that's kind of where it came from. I wrote a book called Art of the XtianNinja, which is based on kind of an experience I had with God with Matthew chapter 6, right? It was, when you pray, go into your closet. When you give, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And it started making me think, what else does God want us to do as Christians that nobody's supposed to see? Right. And so that became Art of the XtianNinja, and that became a little book. And then that's just kind of where that all came from. That's where my name came from.
I love that. I did not know that story.
Yeah. It was actually such a neat book too. I just did a little study for basically young Christians, and then I worked with a manga artist to do art on the side of it. It's so cool. I'm so proud of that book. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, I love knowing a little bit of the background of your story, because when you get into this space, of course, the name Ninja comes with a certain amount of weight, or if you're in the Twitch space at all, because Ninja was the biggest, just Ninja was the biggest streamer forever. So I didn't actually know that XtianNinja is rooted in Matthew 6, in this idea of hey, how can we as Christians be stealthy about the good deeds that we have, the way that we live, the way that we serve Jesus? I love that. So you were a pastor prior to doing this. I know that personally. Tell us a little bit about that portion of your story.
I grew up, like I said, I grew up as a nerd. I was going to be a computer guy. I was going Bill Gates mode for basically my whole high school career, I went to the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, took computers, took programming, and hated it. Absolutely hated it. As soon as it became a job, I was like, I don't like this at all. And then they were telling me I was going to have to do like accounting software and like none of the fun, cool stuff that I wanted to do. And it was like, I don't like this. And so I flunked out, and I had to do something. So in order to be registered, in order to get a job at the mill for the summer, you had to be registered at some school somewhere. And I didn't know what to do with my life at that point at all, because that was literally my only focus, was be computer guy. And so my dad said, you know what? Our pastor went to this Bible college. Why don't you go there for a year and figure yourself out? I got there, and for me, it was when people said talk about life-changing experiences, it was a all of me changing experience. When I walked in there, because of my history of bullying, of being bullied, I should say, of really difficult times through school and just really hard. I walked in there and I didn't like people. And people are mean and people are horrible, and you can't trust them and you can't trust your friends. And, I just kind of walked in there. I paid extra just so I wouldn't have a roommate, right? Like when I walked in there, I was an angry young man. And it was within a few months, after being pestered by everybody in dorm, all these guys who wouldn't leave me alone and kept inviting me to things and being nice. And like eventually we were at a prayer meeting where I raged out. I went full Hulk mode, man. I was red in the face and crying and I was just shaking. And these guys were holding me down as I was on the bed and praying over me. And they didn't know what was going on, and I barely knew what was going on. And really, what it was like this cathartic moment of having to make a choice between continuing in that bitterness and that distrustful nature and just hating folks, or choosing to come back to God, come back to Jesus, allow people into my life. And as soon as I did that, it's like a switch flipped. I was able to kind of hear God more. He said one thing. I remember that. He said, "Stay here." And so I did what I always do, and that's as much as possible. So I signed up for the 4-year program, and I stayed there. I'm like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'll stay here. And it was awesome. I joined a band. I got a girl who turned into my wife. I had friends. I was able to build like a really big kind of group of people that were all meeting together. It was great. It was awesome. Loved it. When I got out of Bible college, I thought I would go into ministry. I didn't know what, so I just walked up to the denominational leader and I'm like, "Hey, I got a bachelor's of religion now. Can I have a job?" I was like, "No."
Will you, sir, will you give me a job? I have this paper here.
Yeah. And he's like, "No, you have no experience." So why don't you either go get 10 years of experience or a seminary degree? And I'm like, "Sure. I like school." So I went back went to seminary, and I took a master's degree. And literally, I kid you not, third year, second semester, I still didn't know what I was doing with myself. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be here. I know I'm supposed to be in ministry. I know that my life is dedicated to the church, but I don't know what. At that point, I've been guiding myself for so long. I've been guiding myself to every mentor, I want this guy. And to every church, I want to serve in this church. And to every ministry, I want to do that. And I think that's what I want to do. And I gave up. I said, "God, I will do whatever anybody tells me from now on. I'm done. I'm letting go." And then the next day, my academic vice president, the guy had been working with me for a little while, he called me up and he basically said, "I want you to go preach at this little church." And if it was 2 days before, I would have laughed him off the phone. I don't preach. I'm a background guy. I am play the bass, sit in the sound booth, nerd, I don't like people and I don't like being in front, and I want to be back here. I will be more than happy to elevate you to be great, and you can have all of my skills, and I really don't care if anybody knows it. That's where I want to be. And then God hands me the microphone and he goes, "Go up to the front and preach." And I gave the world's worst sermon for
we all did the first time.
Way fast, way too. I preached like 8 pages in 12 minutes. It was blistering. Everybody looked like that old Maxell commercial where their hair's all blown back, and that was what everybody looked like.
Just like you're spitting 400 words a minute, just
legit,
like churning through it.
Not an to be heard, nothing. It's just straight. Yeah, and so after that though, the church said, "Could you come back?" And then
They like to drink from the fire hose, man.
Let's go. And then another church heard, and I started preaching around the city, terrified every single step of the way. And it was then, and really working with the AVP, that kind of went, you know what, I think you might be a preacher, and which was totally freaked me out. And so I graduated, and I said, God, send me where you want to send me. And my first church was a little church in Cleveland, Ohio, where I was the
of all places
solo pastor of a church of the average age 73. I was the youngest person in the room. That wasn't one of the two children. It was, yeah. And so I got there, and I was officially a pastor. I had to learn a lot. I got trounced a few times, and it was I had to learn a lot of humility, because when I was in Edmonton, everything worked, man. When I was in seminary, and like whatever I touched was great. I'd do a small group and blow up, and let's do this ministry, it'd blow up. So I went to Cleveland. I just assumed I was just going to be Billy Graham of Cleveland, and everything would be great. And God's like, here's what that looks like when you think it's you, and it just and so it's been.
Oh, isn't that the case though, where God takes us through seasons of both like showing us success and then just humility, right? Just a replication of the story of the Israelites just lived out in our time, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I did that for 16 years. I served two abusive churches. I've hit burnout twice. I had a hard row to hoe as a minister, and it was a lot. It's been a lot for a long time. When I got to the last church that I served full time, I went there for about 7 years. We got to the end, and everybody's streaming story starts the same these days. It's like, and then COVID, right? And then COVID, So it's what happened is basically half the church disagreed with closing, and half the church was fine with it, and they took off and they started their own thing.
Every pastor's favorite season of life.
Legit. Oh, dude, like my elder is, an anti-vax who wants to go have a little church in the woods, and like he's like, yeah, so we're gathering these people from other churches, and we're driving into the woods, and then we're parking. We're going even farther, so the government can't find us. We're going to have service there. And I'm like, oh, dude, all right, fine. And so the church is like, we can't afford you anymore. Like, he took half the church with him. So you're going to have to. We don't know what to do with you. So be warm and well fed. Have a nice life. And so I went home, and I'm like, well, now what do I do? Right? Am I done with ministry? Like I was a hurting unit, right? I had been working like crazy. You guys know how that worked. It was like make the videos and put it out and have the Zoom meetings and make sure you try to contact everybody all the time, and everything's 10 times harder. So what do you want me to do, God? Sat down and had a conversation with a friend, a really good, wise, smart friend, who said, don't stop doing just do something.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Like,
just do something. You got to study, and you got to have some kind of reason to keep going. So I did, and so that's where I really pressed into the podcast, changed that, and did as much as I possibly could. And I started to get that impression, like, you know what, I want to get feedback. I want to talk to people, because the podcast goes out there, and then it's gone. It's in the ether, and you never hear anything back. So how can I do that? And I started looking into it, and it was basically live streaming. It was the answer. I want to be able to do this, but I want to be able to do it live. One of my favorite things to do, and I did it for a decade and a half, was I called it overtime. After church, everybody come back into the sanctuary. I'll stand here. You can ask me whatever you want. We'll talk about the sermon. We'll talk about what's in your life. We'll do counseling. You can ask me about free will versus determination again for the 17,000th time. So I loved it. And so that's when I started bouncing it off of my mentor, bouncing it off my friends, asking myself the question, what should I do? And then as the confirmation come in from people being like, yeah, that sounds like something you should do. It really fit you well. I think that would be something. I looked into it, and that's where I started to experiment with what would live streaming look like. And then I thought it was going to be YouTube. I just assumed it was going to be YouTube. I didn't even know, I didn't know Twitch at all. I knew it existed.
It's its own little bubble, right? In some ways, when you enter the world of Twitch, you are entering like this other city that most people didn't know was on the map. Right?
A whole nother country. Yeah, it's like living in Atlantis. It exists, it's big, but nobody knows it's there. And as soon as I started researching Twitch, What's it like to be at Twitch? Who's on Twitch? What's going on there? My heart immediately was like, these are my people. My heart goes out to them. This is who I want to communicate with. They are people who are, lonely, lost, disillusioned, people who with mental health issues, learning disabilities, people who have really been, hurt by organizations, hurt by the church, just folks who are at home and there's a reason that they're there. And so I'm like, yes, I want to do that. I'll tell you a little story, kind of tangentially. For a long time, and this is true. It's going to sound like I'm faking it, but it's absolutely true. For a long time, whenever I crested the hill coming into Ottawa, and it was dusk or night, I would see, the city, the lights across the city, and each individual little apartment building and all the rest of that stuff, and it would often bring me to tears. I would come across, and because the reason was, here are 1 million people I will never be able to talk to, and I will never be able to reach. And I can help. I have counseling skills, and I have answers that they want. And I can help you meet Jesus, and I can put you into a group, and you can get help. I think God has given me the ability to help you, and I will never find them, and they will never see me, and I will never know how to help them, and they will never come to church, and they will never be part of anything, and they hate Jesus, and how? And I would cry. I would weep. And this ministry, Twitch, and this is the only revelation I had within the last 8 months here. This is God answering that prayer.
Yeah, confirmation of hey, you want to know how to reach the people that you viewed to be completely outside of your reach, right? Because you're inside the doors of the church, and no matter what you do as the leader of this church, there are going to be hundreds of thousands of people that are never going to step through the door, whose stories you won't know. And to be fair, what I love about that is it's kingdom, right? It's bigger. It's because even if you are hey, let's just say hypothetically, our church exploded in growth. Let's say something changed and we became the biggest church in Canada, right? And we had thousands of people coming every weekend. I am still only going to scratch the surface of this space, one space, and there are hundreds of thousands of spaces like this space with millions of people who are never ever stepping through the doors of the church. And one of the things we say at Lux a lot is our church exists to reach people who'd rather go to hell than go to church. And really, God I think calls people into ministry in a handful of different ways, but certainly he confirms that calling for breaking your heart for the people who are lost.
Yeah. We're not only post-Christian, we live in a society now where I said this 20 years ago, where grandma isn't a Christian. I think right now we're great grandma wasn't a Christian. I mean, there's no heritage of faith for so many people. When I was growing up, you'd ask somebody, what are you a Christian? They'd go, I think so. My grandma goes to Anglican church, I think. So yeah, but now the answer is just plain old no. Yeah. And why would you be? Have you seen what the church has been doing with, to people and children and neighborhoods and stuff? I hate, and my heart.
Or almost I haven't thought about it. We're getting to the point.
Or for that, why would I?
I haven't really considered that. What do you mean? Am I religious? Of course not. No one's religious, right? What do you mean?
Yep.
Isn't that something people were that decades ago, right? It's
we've gotten over that as a society.
Yeah, we've passed that. But you're 100% right. And we encounter people, and in the online world, right, that is more readily available, right? Because if you even here in the States, you grew up in the Bible Belt, that's not really the case still. But when you start ministering to people in Sweden, and you start ministering to people in England and Australia, and other areas of the world, where you being being my northern brother right now, right? I think that Canada, to a certain extent, has progressed culturally further down that line than what certain sections of the U.S. have, and so
certainly
in some ways you see that even before I will see it. I'm in the northeast of the United States, so we have progressed further that direction than say the Bible Belt has, or if you're in Georgia or something. But that's really astute. It's generationally gone from the conversation. Right.
Canada's right in the middle, right? You got Europe, which is super liberal, and you got U.S., which is a little, kind of behind. I don't know, 10. I think it was 10 or 7 or 8 years or whatever behind Europe, and Canada's right in the middle. We've got this crazy, super hyper liberal insanity stuff, like free drugs for everybody, and we're gonna we'll buy you your own heroin, and we're gonna, if you want to die, we can die, and if you're 12 and sad, the government will kill you. Like that's the level we've got going on. But also we have this a bunch of conservative, like you go to Western Canada, really, you got a ton of conservative stuff going on there too, because you got farmers and you got all this rural area that is still fairly conservative. But again, it's a sort of an agnostic conservatism, but.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm sure that you and I could derail endlessly off of your story and into this. I guarantee that we'd be capable of doing it. So all of that to say, we have a lot of your story, your narrative. COVID really provokes you to head into streaming 3 years ago. You decide to take that dive, and since then you've been building teams, investing in people, which is pretty unique in the space, right? Like, you haven't been a solo act from day one, which I'm sure comes to your ministerial background, right? Of the concept of building teams, that I am not the church, right? Mm-hmm. Like, but that we communally are followers of Jesus. I want to connect people to one another. You're doing all of that stuff, but there also had to have come this season of discernment for you where it went from, because we talk about this a lot on this podcast of like, it's not always easy to discern if God is telling you to do it, if he's calling you into a point of passion. And for a lot of people, right, they got on Twitch, they saw Tim the Tap Man, they saw Ninja, they saw Dr. Lupo, and they're like, I want to do that, right? And they see the allure of the wealth and the fame and all of those things. Yep. And then they see a Christian, and so they find your stream, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I could actually do this as a Christian. And then there's the struggle of calling, right? Mm-hmm. Am I actually called to do this as a follower of Jesus? Is God asking me to do this? Or does this just seem like a cool mashup of my childhood fantasy of being known and being famous, and also the faith that I grew up with? And if I could pair those two things together, how cool would that be? And yeah, I think discerning, is this God or is this me, is hard. So how has that played out for you? Because you certainly operate with a really high sense of calling. Like, God is going to take care of me because he told me to do this, and he figures it out, and I don't know how he figures it out, but I'm following him, right? And so tell me about that process of moving from I'm pastoring in a church to I'm now doing live streaming to I'm giving my life to live streaming, and I feel that this is the calling that God has really placed on my life.
Well, it's a big deal, right? Like, for me, I'm the breadwinner. I'm the dad. I've got, kids at home. We got to feed those kids, and my wife expects, to have a house and all that stuff. So it's not like I can just mess around. After ministry, believe it or not, I didn't have a ton of money in the bank, right? It's not like I have a huge pile I can draw from. So therefore, it's like, I got to make sure that if this is where God wants me, that this is where God wants me. And so it's no different than anybody else's call. It's asking the question, okay, I'm going to go talk to my mentor. I'm going to talk to my Christian friends. I'm going to talk to people that know me. I'm going to talk to pastors that, they're not my friends, but they are pastors. And I'm going to tell them what's on my mind and what's on my heart. And I'm going to ask them what they see, and just kind of hearing from them, like, yeah, we see that in you. And yeah, that definitely lines up with what we think. And let me pray about that. And yeah, you know what? I really think that God has this for you. Searching inside, it's that nighttime story for sure. But at the same time, it fits my skills and talents and interests and history and education perfectly. I fill a gap that no one else is filling, right? So it makes sense that God be like, yeah, you, because nobody else is doing it. So go ahead and that this is a calling. It's if there's not a million people out there that are trying to do what I'm doing, because of my history of pain, it matches the people who are online, the people that I'm reaching. The tuition that I paid through 4 decades of difficulty is part of that story. It matches the people I'm trying to serve, and really there's a moment. I had a real Balaam's donkey moment where it was like, I don't know what you want me to do here, God, because I get it. I'm going to go on. You want me to be online. I get it. How do you want me to pay my bills? Like, am I supposed to go get a part-time job? Am I supposed to go, go to a church and maybe I'll try to work this in? What do you want me to do? And I came up with a great solution. I was going to work for a nonprofit, a parrot rescue. Like apparently, I don't know if you know about parrots, man, but people do not treat them well, and they don't realize they live like, I don't know, 80 years or something, and
so
they're very
there's
finicky.
a nonprofit that rescues said parrots from unprepared pet owners.
Yeah, so and it's like 2 blocks from my house, right? And it's the only one in Canada. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So
and there can't be a ton of parrots in Canada, right? Like that's not. You probably don't need more than one parrot.
More than but there's enough for one.
Okay, enough for one. Okay, got it. Yeah. I love this part of the story. I just for the record, I love the parrot rescue section. Okay, go ahead.
So I figured this is the perfect solution. It's a nonprofit. I like working with nonprofits. They want a media guy. They want someone to come in, do the website, make videos, do the make editing, do all kinds of stuff like that. They have pictures. I'm the guy. I love that. I get to work from home. They said we'll give you a 1-year contract. We think it's and I'm like, great, that'll be perfect. So I can kind of do this thing in the middle, and here's how much money, and it should be just enough. Neat. So I do 3 interviews. At the third interview, I'm sitting across from like the person running the joint. And she says to me, you're perfect for this job. You're exactly who we want. We've been trying to get people to do this for 2 years, and you're exactly who we want. I cannot in good conscience hire you. You clearly have such a passion for this online ministry thing that it would be wrong for us to take you away from that. So go do that. And that was, to me, she's not a believer, right? She's not a Christian. This wasn't like a Christian telling me this. It was someone who just saw passion. And for me, I just heard God very clearly go, listen, I've got this. Just trust me. Just go do. You go forward and do your thing. I'll take care of you. And I'm like, okay. So I told my wife, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do full time. I'll hit it as hard as I can, and I'm going to try my best. And I believe that God's going to pay our bills. Don't know how, but He will. And I have been, and for almost 3 years, I've been living like that.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. I love that story. One of the things that we've done. So I mean, you and I both having pastoral backgrounds, right? We have systems in place in our brains, right? When somebody says, is God telling me to do this? Yeah. We have all the check boxes, right? And so when someone asks me, I say, well, does Scripture check the box? Is it against Scripture? Okay, it's not. Do you feel like the Holy Spirit's provoking this in you? Yeah, He's stoking those fires. Okay. Have you talked to mentors and people if they, okay, yeah. Do the circumstances present themselves, right? Are the doors open that required? Is God already painfully redirected you from something else, in this direction? What does that look like? And we talked in the last episode that I did with Miss P about the book Whisper by Mark Batterson, which is all about the various ways that God speaks to us. And so I love that for you, right, you could articulate all of those things, right, to another person. But when it comes to you, as an individual, it's not always as easy. It's easy to articulate it to the person who's coming to you and saying, is God speaking to me? It's not always easy to receive it and trust that this is what God is asking me to do, and to hear God speak to you through somebody who wasn't a believer, right? It wasn't like you were going to a mentor and saying, hey, wise person who gets to speak into my life, is this from God, right? It's like, there's various passages in the Scriptures where God sends somebody, right? Whether it was a queen from a foreign land sent to Solomon, whether it's wise men from an Eastern kingdom that are sent to Jesus, whether it's where He sends people to speak and be an example to His chosen people. And so this is the first narrative that we've had in terms of calling, where it was like, well, God gave me such a surefire sign because He actually spoke to me directly about my calling through somebody that by all rights had no reason to speak to me about calling. And it's so beautiful sometimes when God just grabs our attention and says, hey, I know the way that you want to do this, but let me tell you about my faithfulness if you'll follow. And I love that.
Every ministry I've taken for my entire career, I've gotten less income. I've achieved less for my entire for 20 straight years, and so I'm used to living in living by faith, right? And that might sound arrogant, but what I'm saying is that I have seen God act so clearly, so miraculously, so many times that to step in and go, okay, well, if God's in this and this is where He wants me to go, I don't know what He's gonna do, but it'll work out. Like I remember a time where I was, down to $1.10. I didn't have a job. I had just left one because of, or whatever. I won't tell the story, but anyway, I down to $1.10, and I'm like, God, I don't know what to do, and I know you don't like debt, and I know I'm not supposed to put this on a credit card, so I need provision. And that day, I had someone call me up and ask me if I like strawberries, and I said I do like strawberries. I would love some strawberries. And she came by and she came up to the door and she handed me the strawberries and it had a little note in it, and then she ran away, and her car blisteringly, I mean, like Back to the Future flames left the street. I'm like, that was weird. And so I open up the envelope, and it's a little note that says, I really appreciate you, and I want you to know that God's with you, and here's $5,000 so that because he wants you to have this. And boom, there it is. And that got me over the hump, and then I was able to keep moving. And that kind of story has played out multiple times in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting when you come to moments like this, you have other people who hear about it, and these stories are inspiring, right? For some of the people who've been on the show, the calling was, I don't know, I tried my hand on this and it just started working, and so God confirmed it that way, right? And then you do have some of these sort of like mountaintop or valley moments for people where it's almost like a divine intervention, like God intercedes and steps in, is like, this is what you're going to do. And so I always want to be aware of the fact that, like, if this is the only episode that you're listening to, right? If you're out there and you're listening to this, and this is the only episode that you're listening to, like, listen to some of the other stories and narratives of calling that have been part of this space. Because I think it's always important when you hear a story like XtianNinja's, where you do have like this almost divine appointment moment, right? That you hear that could happen for you. Right? That could be part of your narrative, part of your story, but God does speak to you in a multitude of ways as well. And so there could be lots of other ways. And so I think that's why it's so important that we are asking the same question of so many people, because then you hear the different ways that God has spoken, and their narrative isn't the same as your narrative, right? Your story isn't the same as their story, and God chooses to work in unique ways that are true to you. And so it's not like a one size fits all. What I'm hearing from you, Ninja, is like, hey, this is the way that God spoke to me. Like, tune your ear to Him and listen to Him if you feel like this is where you're supposed to go.
I wouldn't wish my path or testimony on anybody. Like the difficulty and the pain and that I've been through has been monumental. The tuition I've had to pay to get here is consequential. It's consequential. It cost my son his life. It's difficult, but God treats us all as individuals. He doesn't just see us as a people, right? He sees Mark, and he sees Alan, he sees individual people, and he speaks to them individually. And the Holy Spirit is connected to you, not just the Bible and not just the church, but he'll speak through you. You got to listen. Yeah, there's universal principles, and yeah, you need guidance, and yeah, you need to be able to walk forward, understanding that the church is a thing and the body of Christ is a thing. But at the same time, he really is available to you personally. Just
love that.
That it's not going to be identical to anybody else, but at the same time, you're going to see echoes of other people.
Love that. I love that. Yeah. It's not going to be identical, but you will see echoes of how it's been lived out. And some of this podcast has been that. It's the echoes, right? It's the echoes of saying, hey, this is how God has spoken to us. Maybe He confirms something in you and you're calling through that. Well, listen, Ninja, as we get ready to land the plane, right? As we get ready to finish, one of the things that we love to ask is, what is something that, March of 2021, right? XtianNinja's getting ready. He's got his Twitch name. He's got his tag. you've researched Twitch. You're like, this is where I'm to be. This is my people. And I'm about to hit go live. So what is the Christian Ninja of the beginning, January 2024? If you could sit down and say something to Christian Ninja of March of 2021, what would you tell him?
I think there's two. I thought about this. You told me to think about this, and so I gave it some thought, man. So I think there's two really big ones. I think the first one I would say is, as usual, you should be used to hearing this by now, but you're not going where you think you're going. So
that's so true. It's very true.
You need to be dependent. You need to listen, right? Like when I first started out, I thought it was like everybody else, right? I think I'm alone. There's nobody else on the platform that is a Christian. It's just me. So I'm gonna make this streamer evangelist safe community that everyone else did the same. Everybody's story. I did the same thing, and that's what I just assumed it was going to mean. And it took months before God really started to zone in the compass towards a completely different point, right? Where he's like, no, I want you to be who I have been making you to be for your whole life. You still get to be pastoral. You still get to be, a Bible teacher and an organizational developer and a leadership development guy. That's what you're still going to do, but you're going to do it here. Okay, so I would say, like, listen, you're not going where I think
God has wasted nothing, right?
All the experiences that I had, kind of figuring out how to be a streamer, I would never trade that for the world, because it's how can I teach streaming if I'm not a streamer, right? And I think the second thing I would tell myself is I give myself permission to be a streamer and to be myself on stream. It sounds silly because you hear that from everybody, but I really did try really hard to find the perfect game and to find the perfect program and find the perfect calendar and to be a great product, right? And I was always so stressed out that that people weren't liking that exact moment of the stream. How could I have made that 1 minute better? How could I have been more whatever? Like, oh, I picked the wrong game. Everybody hated that. I hated that. And I would just call and just say, dude, chill out. You can, if you go on there and you have fun and you enjoy yourself and you are just streaming the YouTube stuff and all the TikTok stuff, and just don't worry about that. I know you want to be this whatever and grow, but just engage with the community that you have on stream, because that's what God called you to that community. So stop reaching out everywhere else. Be okay with that, because, and this is where I'd follow it up with, is to say this is a reward for you. You've been given a gift in this ministry, because you are going to be so happy every day. I have laughed more in the last 3 years than I did in the last 40. This has been the greatest experience ministerially and personally that I've had, I think maybe ever. This is a reward. Enjoy it, man. Play the game that you want to play and have the conversation you want to have and laugh with your community, and you don't have to freak out every day, all day, that your overlays aren't right and everything didn't work and your game's not right and what am I supposed to play and what am I supposed to do and what calendar should I have and what is the next perfect stream going to be. You don't have to do that, man. You've got a bunch of people that if you're just you, who God created you to be, and you're talking to them from your heart and enjoying it, man, that's how it's going to work. You're going to be fine. You'll be fine. And it would have saved me a lot of stress. I worked, when I first started, I did 5 straight months, 7 days a week, 14-hour days.
Not healthy.
Not healthy.
Yeah, it's quickly on a path to burnout very quickly.
Legit. And so I took a gift. Like, it would be like someone, here's a present, go play baseball. Here's a baseball mitt. Go play catch. And you went out there and you're like, I'm going to be... I'm going to go straight to the majors, and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to play until I'm dead. And that's not why I gave you the ball, man.
Man, like, you ruined the gift. You're ruining the gift, man.
Legit. Like,
yeah, it was meant to have fun, and I didn't hand you a burden.
Exactly.
I didn't hand you a burden.
So true. That is exactly true. Stop treating it like a burden. It's a gift.
Oh man. There's something in there for people who are out there. There's no doubt, but there's something in there for this pastor as well. So there's something in there for me, because the number of days, Yeah. Well, listen, you know this, I know this. It's, as a pastor, there's a certain weight and burden that you carry, right? And listen, like, I realize that, I don't think that you call, like, your XtianNinja brand the live stream, right? I realize that you call yourself a streamer. I know that you're a pastor. You have the pastoral heart. I realize that, like, you're doing leadership development, not necessarily holding church services. Although I would say that all of your pastoral gifts that are at, existing inside of leading a church exist inside of what you're doing now. So you understand that burden, and you continue to carry that with you, right? The burden of wanting to disciple people, care for people, be there for people, all of those things. So then you also know the burden of, like, walking outside your house and seeing the construction worker who's just fixing the road and being envious of the guy who's just fixing the road, who in the end of the day just has to make sure that he fixed the road, right? And feeling that feeling, and that oftentimes, in my experience, that has come whenever I have been, as a pastor, bearing a burden that was intended for the Holy Spirit. And was not intended for me to carry. And I think a lot of times what should be joy-filled as a pastor, what should be joy-filled as a minister, becomes burdensome because we carry the weight of what only the Holy Spirit is capable of doing on our shoulders. And we're incapable then of living in the freedom and the joy of calling that God has placed us, right? That feeling in early ministry that you and I both have had, right? Of those early days, everything that I touched was gold, right? Of feeling like this isn't even work. Feeling like this isn't even work. I can't believe I get paid to do this. I just love this. And that sort of thing can be restored. That feeling, that knowledge can be restored if we will allow the Holy Spirit to be the Holy Spirit and allow us to be limited, finite human beings that are partnering with God in what he's doing, which is exactly what we are. And there's a certain sense, especially in pastoral ministry, where you have this deep desire to be infinite.
Well, old illustration of, the farmer can't make the seeds grow, right? He goes out there and he puts them in the ground, and then that's it. Like, he can't do anything else. He can create the environment, and then it's up to God from there. God will either send rain and sun, or God will send a tornado, and we don't know. You have no control. It's the same exact thing when you're in ministry, same exact thing when you're doing anything connected to what God wants, and that is, your part of this is quite minuscule. You have an obedience level that you need to follow, but all the stuff that you think is going to happen and all the fruit and all that stuff, you really can't make it happen. You really can't. It'd be like standing out there and yelling at the ground to try to make the plants grow. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Oh man. Amen. Well, Ninja, you and I, like, the thing that I love about talking with you, right, is there's this, there's this understanding that you and I can
affinity.
Have. Yeah, there's an affinity, there's an understanding that isn't necessary, that is shared by some people in the space. Don't get me wrong. There's brothers and sisters in the space who've been through some of the trenches, right? And I haven't been through the trenches you've been through. You haven't been through the trenches I've been through, but sharing some of those things similar always makes it enjoyable for us to get into these conversations. And one of my regrets of NCMS was that I was so busy that I didn't get that opportunity to connect with each person the way that I wanted to. So we had a meeting for it, and this is going to land the plane. I had a meeting for NCMS yesterday, and I said, I don't need to do as many things as I did last year, so that I actually have the chance to meet with and connect with people in a real way. So,
hey, listen, if you could have met with everybody there and there was only 20 people in the room and you could have had a good conversation, well, I don't think you would have liked that either.
That's probably true, right? Not infinite. Well, listen, with that being said, guys, thank you for listening to the NCMU podcast. Keep your ear to the ground. We had our final meetings, meetings for, like, landing the plane on dates and location for NCMS 2024. So I think by the end of January, I'm not sure when this episode's coming out. I think it'll be out by the end of January. But by the end of January, we should have made an announcement, or very soon thereafter, about the days and locations. And I'll give a little teaser, but it's going to involve being very close to some mountains, and it will also be very, very likely in the month of October. So those are the two things. Just keep it aware if you're thinking, like, thinking October, midweek October mountains. And so little
So
teaser.
bring a jacket.
Bring a jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring a jacket with you. We're really excited for all that's coming up with Nerd Ministry Underground, the collective, with the summit. Lots of great stuff going on. So keep your ear to the ground and check it out. Link to a Discord in this episode as well. So if you want to check that out, check it out. And as always, we'll also put links to XtianNinja, the stuff that he is doing on Twitch and places. So you can go check him out. Right now, Monday through Thursday, live streams, right?
Monday through Thursday. Yeah. And shout out to just Taco, the Alliance for Creative Outreach, which is the network that I created. That's where I do my training for Christian content creators. That's where we've got the people together. That's where a lot of the fun stuff that anybody who's listening who is a content creator and wants support and wants some love and wants to be taken care of and wants some training. That Taco. Go to Taco.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I guess you have a website for Taco?
TacoNetwork.org.
TacoNetwork.org. We'll throw a link for that in this episode. But if you are having trouble finding it, just head over to XtianNinja's stream as well and chat with him there. I'm sure he'd be willing to direct you to it. There's links to it all over his page as well if you're having trouble finding it. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Nerd Culture Ministry Underground podcast. We thank you guys so much for tuning in, and as always, be sure to come back for next episode.